Hey.
Oh, yo, we in here. We in here. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode. I think episode 9, that is, of Uncomfy Truths, spreading common sense in the nonsense world podcast. I'd like to go ahead and introduce myself. I'm conservative brother Daly here with my main man, conspiracy brother. How you doing, conspiracy brother?
I'm not doing too bad. How about yourself?
Can't complain, man. The man can't shut us down. They probably gonna censor us quite a bit, but they can't shut us down. So we're back at it again, man. So
Indeed.
yeah, man, we're here to kick off another episode. Those of you guys have been listening in, the few of you, still very great to have you guys. So we're just gonna pop right into it and have some cool but necessary discussions with everything going on right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and we will go to work. So let's kick things off. We have right here New York City's migrant shelter on Randall's Island closes down. Asylum seekers will move to hotel. The single adult men will be moved to a humanitarian relief center at the Watson Hotel in Manhattan. Now, Conspiracy Brothers, since your submission, do you want to give us a little context on this, or maybe start? You want to read it first? Tell us how you want to go about this.
I can read it, or you can read it, whichever you prefer to do. I can read it if you want.
You can read it. I'll scroll along. Yeah.
So we've got New York City will close down the Randall's Island tent shelter for migrant asylum seekers, Mayor Eric Adams said on Thursday. City officials are in the process of, quote, demobilizing, end quote, the shelter due to a decrease in migrant arrivals in recent weeks. The single adult male migrants will be moved to Midtown Manhattan, where 600 rooms will be available at the Watson Hotel. Quote, this humanitarian emergency response and relief center will provide asylum seekers with a place to stay, access to support, and get to their final destination, end quote, Adams said in a statement. Let's see.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, no problem. We will, quote, we will continue to pivot and shift as necessary to deal with the humanitarian crisis, but it's clear that we still need financial assistance from our state and federal partners, end quote, the statement added. According to Adams, the estimated number of asylum seekers in New York City is over 23,800. City officials are caring for at least 17,500 migrants. The Randall's Island shelter opened in October after the original Orchard Beach shelter in the Bronx flooded. The facility, which was intended to house up to 500 single adult men, featured laundry facilities, a cafeteria, and entertainment centers that included Xbox systems. Republican mayoral candidate Curtis Silwa criticized the decision to board migrants on Randall's Island, which also houses Kirby Forensic Psychiatric Center, a maximum security facility for mentally unstable and often violent patients. Quote, that is sort of like mixing ammonia and bleach. You are asking for a problem, end quote, Silva told Fox News Digital. Quote, there's going to be a riot on the island, end quote. Adams' press release also subtly criticized Governor Greg Abbott of Texas for busing migrants to the Big Apple. Abbott has maintained that the effort was intended to bring awareness to the severity of the migrant crisis at the southern border. Let's see. Quote, the city has largely on its own taken fast and urgent action, managing the arrival of a rapidly increasing number of buses across New York City, with virtually no coordination from states sending them, end quote, Adams' statement said.
All right, so I'll kind of kick my thoughts off. So just got done, reading the whole thing. But definitely, this is kind of another one of those things where we're just asking for more violence, more crime. It just makes no sense how literally instead of just busing the illegals back to Mexico or wherever they came from, we're still doing this sort of tip of toe around. Let's move them here. Let's move them to Guantanamo Bay. Let's move them to Ellis Island. Wherever we can move them, even though we're not going to just go all the way out. And once again, this isn't a sort of race thing or against a group of people. It's just a matter of every group of people has a certain amount within that who may be violent, who may be mentally unwell, and other things that really risk and threaten the city. And Eric Adams is just gone to show once again that all skin folk ain't kinfolk, and he's just sort of furthering this, decriminalization of crime, decriminalization of illegal immigration agenda that's making things progressively worse. And then they turn around and ask, "Oh, I can't believe all this is happening. What's going on? I can't believe all this is happening." So it just doesn't surprise me at this point. I won't be going back to New York City anytime soon, and it's just really a disgrace on everything going on, and really sort of ushering in the whole escape to New York dystopian society that's going to be happening sooner or later, with crime going up, people noticing it, people on the left and the right calling it out. So that's my take. So what do you think, conspiracy brother?
Well, the one of the things that we talked about before, dealing with Adams and the Abbott and the busing of migrants or asylum seekers to D.C., Chicago, New York, is that it's always easy to want to be in a sanctuary city when you don't have any real threat of having to confront migrants or individuals who need sanctuary. You know what I'm saying? And so I think, for him to be upset, and it's almost like for when you see people who say, "Oh, if this was me, I wouldn't do that. I would do this, I would do that." I mean, that's essentially what he's doing as governor, and then or mayor of New York City. And then when he's confronted with the reality of that situation, he becomes a hypocrite, right? It's like a cognitive dissonance. You know what I'm saying? Because you want to try to talk all this mess, and maybe he's got to inherit a lot of the policies of De Blasio before him, so maybe he doesn't really feel this way, but he certainly cleaved on to the rhetoric and apparently the policy for his administration. And so, it is what it is. It comes with the territory. You wanted to be the mayor. This is what you signed up for. This is what you repeatedly espouse whenever you're presented with the reality of the situation of migrants and your own citizenship and your lack of funds and resources, and especially in the midst of an economic downturn. And so, I have no sympathy for him specifically or the situation, because when Texas have been complaining, and Arizona and New Mexico and the border states have been complaining about having to deal with an influx of migrants that they couldn't handle, whether they were being honest or not, there was little concern for them. And so when they've been able to take that problem and make it a problem for DC, for New York, for Chicago, and all these cities who or states, or in the case of DC, territories, federal districts, who preach a certain ideology, who push a certain agenda, now when they have the opportunity to experience what he had been complaining about, whether truthfully or not, they don't like it. And so, what's good for the goose is always good for the gander.
Well said. Well said. And once again, it just goes back to the hypocrisy of, ever since Biden got into office, there's been, illegal immigrants from Mexico, or wherever it is, flying in the dark at night all over the country, not a peep. Then Ron DeSantis goes ahead and pulls this little stunt, which is once again gutsy. But Abbott was doing it, sending them to D.C., some uproar, but not a huge amount there. And then DeSantis sends his illegals over to Martha's Vineyard, and obviously that whole fiasco. So it just goes to like the basic Democrats. A lot of people have to remember, we got to always remember, not get caught up in splitting hairs and all the little itty bitty policies. At the end of the day, you got to have that macro worldview when it comes to these Democrats. A lot of them follow this communist Marxist agenda. And the big part of that is that through the ashes, we will rise to a one world order. So they have to create chaos. They have to back all these policies that cause all this. And it goes to that Rules of Radical book. The Rules of Radical book, it's called Rules of Radicals. And it's kind of like Clinton's favorite book and all that. And they talk about literally whatever you do, whatever you're doing, you accuse the other side of doing. So they're creating the issues, they create the problems so they can campaign off the solutions. So they blame everybody else for problems they manufacture. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So Godspeed, Mayor Adams, but you're not gonna be in my book, my good graces anytime soon. All right, so moving. Next article we have lots of anger. Farmington Hills students among dozens exploited on porn website. All right, so this out of Farmington Hills, Michigan. A female student at North Farmington High School is breaking her silence after being exploited online without even knowing it. Her image and others were placed on a pornographic website. 7 Action News confirmed the 17-year-old was arrested. The photos themselves were not in sexual nature, and the letter did not go out to parents to inform the school. Anger, lots of anger. I'm pretty angry about it still. Lana Har said. As a senior, she's made all the right choices to protect her reputations. Most of us are sad and hurt and violated. It's just a mess. She told 7 Action News there could be as many as 40 victims. All right, I saw some things on the website, and there are some videos of people doing things that are inappropriate. It's absolutely disgusting. We also spoke with her mother. I was revolted. The person who did this took some really innocent photos of my kid that were perfectly appropriate, where she felt great about herself, and turned it into something vulgar and disgusting. Barrett Har said, get these kids support. They have been violated in a way that no high school student should be dealing with. Barrett Har added for Alana Har, they also are having face the reality of other classmates being targeted. I've had to personally tell people they were on the website. As for teens arrested, they've been able to return the custody for now. While charges are reviewed, there remains one burning question. Why? What's going on in his head? Why would he do this to us? I did nothing. People are still investigating whether or not there could be more victims in case. If you can help with the case, call Farmington Hills Department at 248-87100. All right, so I got a lot to say on this, but and give us your thoughts.
I think a lot of this is just an issue we find with this issue when you look at technology and I think pornography and exposure to sex or sexuality and a lot of different factors that are affecting kids that didn't affect kids in that same way years ago. Even when we were in high school, kind of at the beginning of the social media age. I think with like one of my things, like I'm not on TikTok. I don't know if you use TikTok. I don't use TikTok. I don't have it on my phone. One of the things that I looked at TikTok, it's like a social, not a social contagion, but it's almost like social engineering, because you see people doing very embarrassing things on TikTok, adults. And it's like, what would make a person, what would possess a person to do this? And it almost seems, in my opinion, like it's the Chinese government is doing it to kind of destabilize and implant certain behaviors and thoughts and things into American people. And I don't mean like in a, like a brainwashing situation, but I mean like from exposure and from sharing certain content in media and even with the U.S. government doing some of that, implanting certain ways of thinking and having that pervasive. I think, especially with younger kids on it, they're not able to fully, one, their brains aren't fully formed, and two, they're not able to fully comprehend the long-term effects of their actions. And so I think all these things kind of compound to make the online space very dangerous. And I'm not advocating necessarily for censorship in such a way that, what we're going to be talking about a little later. But what you find is there needs to be a greater role of parents in making sure that their children are being properly trained to deal with these environments. Right. So I guess that's where I'll leave it.
Great point, man. And like you mentioned, you kind of hit the nail right on the head. It is the unfortunate de-emasculation of society. If you go to the TikTok in China, they're not doing these silly little dances. They don't have some trans TikToker that's like, talking about how cool it is to be a girl. They got like people doing like solving the Rubik's Cube in 3 seconds. They're doing all this massive coding, and you could see like are the Chinese children compared to American kids are gonna get murked, when it comes to the workforce and how they can just really take over industries. And it's just sad how that's kind of what they're competing on TikTok, and then we're doing all this other little silly crap. And like you mentioned, they will raise and they will choose who goes viral and for what. And you got this guy, I forgot his name, Dylan Mulvaney or whatever it is, who just decides 6 months ago that I want to become a girl. You can look him up. There's like an old picture of him with Ellen Page. Ellen Page, not Elliot Page now. He was pretty much a down on his luck actor, didn't have nothing else going on. So I'm pretty sure at some point TikTok or the Chinese government, whatever third party, came to him like, hey, why don't you just start doing this and we will prop you up. We will pay you this money. Start acting like a girl because he's an actor anyway. And then, of course, Dylan, he just shows up out of nowhere. Now he's getting interviewing President Biden and going into the White House. And he's just, once again, that another further propaganda puppet. But that just came out of TikTok. So I kind of like this because, unfortunately, it sounds like these were students, probably like, bullies, obviously 17-year-olds. So I feel like there's probably a combination of other high school students, whether they're jealous or whatever it is, they're kind of getting back at them. But then also, I feel like there's a bit of that pedophilia community, and they're kind of going in there, they're doing all types of Photoshop. So I feel like it's a combination of both. But it's just unfortunate that, even with those kids, they weren't doing anything innocent except for just posting regular pics online. They're now subject to that. And this also reminds me, too, of that recent over at Twitter, the lady Vijay, who got fired. She was the head of censorship, basically, at Twitter, legal safety. And she, for years, protected child pedophiles who literally, who went online, who went on Twitter, and basically pretended to be somebody, pretended to be another 16, 17-year-old, and they baited them into sending them pics or video or doing different sexual acts. And then they just pretty much bribed them with it. Eventually, when they tried to get authorities involved, basically the people that exploited them posted the videos and pics online. And it took years, or I think even still, there's these child pornographic images of sexual acts from kids who were exploited. And Vijay at Twitter, she just protected them. She protected that content being online, and just keeping it on Twitter. So I think this is once again further kind of exhibiting this behavior, or it's within the similar camp. And it just goes to show that there's these really sinister forces, whether pedophilic or demonic or whatever it is, and it's driving this. This is just another kind of layer of the corruption over Twitter, and it's spilling into kind of everyday life, unfortunately. So that's all I got to kind of hit up on that. But it is unfortunate. Conspiracy, brother.
Yeah. So since you brought up the Dylan Mulvaney thing, I think, and this is like I always joke with my wife and say, like, I think a lot more people are autistic than we realize, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that more like I think autism is probably, and Asperger's is probably a lot more common than we actually understand. I think a lot more people probably have some type of social glitch, I'll just say, right? For lack of a better term. And so I think a part of what Dylan Mulvaney is dealing with, like you said, he's kind of like a washed up actor, kind of just trying to get somewhere. And so he kind of like did this, I feel like, to troll almost in the very beginning. And as he's progressed, he's gotten more popularity from it. And like you just said, he met with Biden not long ago. He got a deal with Ulta, which a lot of women are upset about. He spoke at a women's conference. And so I think he's so invested in this now. He's making money, getting fame, that he can't give it up, whether he really believes or agrees with this or not at this point. And so I think, and you have a lot of people who will say, well, why would a person lie about this? Why would they? And that's the part I think is the when I say people have a slight autism, like all of us, and I include myself in that, because there are certain aspects of like social interactions that I feel like my brain just doesn't process properly. And so I think we have a lot of that going on because people always just assume the best in people. like people don't lie, like they never have lied. And so it's weird that you have to explain to adults, how people have lied or how they take advantage. Like it reminds you of that Ricky Gervais movie, the Invention of Lying.
Yep.
It's like we live in a world now where people don't understand that people just lie, even with the whole believe women thing. Like women lie. Historically, women have lied. Women have lied, even in the Bible. With the story of Joseph, if you believe the Bible, the story of Joseph, I believe it's Potiphar's wife lied on Joseph to say that he tried to have his way with her and he was thrown in jail. So, biblically, we've seen instances of this happening. And so it's old, it's not new. And so to behave as though, we just don't get it. Nobody would ever lie about something so serious as rape, or no one would lie about something so serious as sexual assault, or about gender identity for attention, for money, for clout. It's just silly. It's silly on its face. And it makes me upset about the future of this world, really, because so long as America still has military control, whether we are an economic power for much longer or not, we still will have a lot of say-so in what goes on in the future. And so our influence will still have an impact on the globe.
Great point. Great point. And and it's just really sad because once again, whether it's the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter, this level of identity politics, what is done, unfortunately, which a lot of good, well-intentioned people didn't see coming, it allows the liars, the manipulators to kind of hide within that group. So guess what? When you have 4 or 5 women that do lie, and it's turned out that they were full of BS, the other 2 to 3 or 1 to 2 women that really went through that, those are the victims who never get justice. Same thing with Black Lives Matter, when there was really maybe real Black victims of different things, but then you have different crimes and circumstances or racial hoax and things just like a Jussie Smollett or whatnot. Then you just minimalize the real other victims that are out there, whether it's women being sexually assaulted or whatnot, or even racial crimes. So it's just sad on that. Moving on, our next in Texas, strike down Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. So, Conspiracy Brother, would you like to read the article or kind of just take us through this one?
Sure. And this, just to give background, this is kind of for everyone who thought that we just had the midterms. Everybody who voted for Biden or the Democrats because they believed they had an agenda that would benefit them, and that Republicans were standing in the way of student loan forgiveness and or whatever plans Biden supposedly had for the country. This is kind of just to remind you that it was all a lie, that everything he did is a lie, everything Biden does is a lie. He literally had to drop out of running for president because he lied so much and got called out for it. And this last time that he ran, when he ran in 2020, the media literally didn't say bad things about him at all. That's how they got this guy across the finish line. They did not say negative things about him at all. Historically low negative information about him, to the point where you had censoring from major social media companies and some other inconsistencies that we don't really get in right now. But so, federal judge in Texas strikes down Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. Byline: the Justice Department is appealing the decision, but the Education Department has halted relief applications. Okay, so a federal judge in Texas on Thursday struck down President Biden's student loan forgiveness program, delivering a victory to a conservative advocacy group that sued to halt the plan. The Job Creators Network Foundation filed a lawsuit in October on behalf of a borrower who does not qualify for the full $20,000 in debt relief and one who is ineligible altogether. The suit alleges the administration violated federal procedures by denying borrowers the opportunity to provide public comment before unveiling the program. U.S. District Judge Mark T. Pittman, who was appointed by Donald Trump, declared the policy unlawful in the Thursday order. In this country, we are not ruled by an all-powerful executive with a pen and a phone, quote, end quote, Pittman wrote in the letter, quote, "Instead, we are ruled by a constitution that provides for three distinct and independent branches of government," end quote. So let's see. In a statement, White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre probably fumbled and stumbled through this. Said, "Quote: We strongly disagree with the district court's ruling on our student debt for relief program, and the Department of Justice. Sorry, is kind of small. The Department of Justice has filed an appeal. The president and his administration are determined to help working and middle-class Americans get back on their feet, while our opponents, backed by extreme Republican special interests, sued to block millions of Americans from getting much-needed relief," end quote. More than 26 million people have applied for loan relief. Jean-Pierre said the administration will hold onto their information, quote, "so it can quickly process their relief once we prevail in court," end quote. The Education Department, however, is no longer accepting applications in light of the ruling, but encourage borrowers to sign up for updates at studentaid.gov. Let's see. Pittman's order comes after the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit last month granted a temporary stay against the loan forgiveness program in a separate lawsuit brought by 6 Republican-led states. The cases are among a growing number of legal challenges to stop Biden's program. Some of those suits, including one filed in Indiana and another in Wisconsin, have been dismissed for lack of standing. On Thursday, Elaine Parker, president of the Job Creators Network Foundation, praised the ruling and said it protects the rule of law, which requires all Americans to have their voices heard by the federal government. The Job Creators Network was founded by Bernie Marcus, a GOP donor who co-founded Home Depot. Quote, "This attempted illegal student loan bailout would have done nothing to address the root cause of unaffordable tuition and greedy, bloated colleges that raised tuition far more than inflation year after year while sitting on $700 billion in endowments," quote, Parker said in a statement. "We hope that the court's decision will lay the groundwork for real solutions to the student loan crisis," end quote. Conservative groups and Republican lawmakers have assailed Biden's
plan from the
outset, and a lot of the court's decision Thursday. Rep. Virginia Fox, North Carolina, the top Republican on the House Education Committee, said, quote, "This administration continues to operate as if it owns self-appointed authority, and transferring billions of dollars in student loans is legitimate. But the rule of law says otherwise. This radical scheme must be eviscerated entirely, and Republicans will continue to support legal challenges to achieve this end," end quote. So we don't have to continue. But one of the issues that is raised in this is that the executive branch does not have authority to deal with the budget. It's a congressional issue, and so this was out of the scope of executive power. And it's probably something Biden was aware of. Nancy Pelosi, even there's a video of her saying that it's not possible for the president to forgive student loan debt with the stroke of a pen. So either she was lying then, or they're lying now. Somebody's lying now. And so
they were lying both times, all the time.
Right. Or everybody's lying constantly. And so, this is a situation wherein you've elected a man who sincerely has no interest in helping the working class. His 50 years in government has shown you that repeatedly. The legislation he's advocated for, the way that they've changed the rules about bankruptcy, specifically, should show you that bankruptcy, crime, policing, cutting government aid to programs like Head Start, etc. You should know that he isn't interested in helping the people. So this should be no surprise to anyone who's been paying attention and who isn't stuck in some ideological, partisan camp as it pertains to politics.
Well said, conspiracy brother. And I don't think you could have put it any better. On a big picture, for a lot of people, they're just still like, "Oh, I voted for Biden. I can't believe," and you got duped. Okay, you got duped. We warned you over and over again. And it's just a matter of Democrats and Republicans do it too, as far as putting out the little carrot. putting out the little carrot about, Biden to forgive $10,000 in student loans, but you didn't read the fine print. You didn't know it had to go through this process. You didn't know that a federal judge or the Supreme Court had to go through their review. So you got all duped up. And of course, this would conveniently come out. I think the news broke maybe, a day or two after Election Day. So after you voted in all the Republicans, you voted blue down the entire ballot. Now you got this to get thrown in your face. So unfortunately, I'm a little more blunt with people might be listening. Like, yeah, you got duped, you voted blue, blah, blah, blah. And, it's just so funny, all the millions of videos that came out when he first made the announcement. I think it was, August, September? Or was it before that? I think it was like back in the spring, right? When we made the first announcement about 10,000 in relief.
I think it was, I don't know if it was the spring or if it was in like the late fall. I mean, the late summer.
But then you had all these people coming out like all these little how-to videos. Like, okay, how to, here's the 3 things you need to know about Biden's forgiveness plan. And what you need to do to prepare. And they're just all, jumping on it, riding that wave, like, it's all set in stone. And, you just don't know what's coming and how it's literally going to, even if that were to happen, how it's going to screw things up and make tuition go up even higher. And then, of course, the college is going to come back and contest against it, countersue, and then here we go. So I'm a little more like, I'm going to call it as I see it and be like, yeah, we can go through all the weeds and read the rest of it, like you were saying. But at the end of the day, you got duped and you didn't read the fine print. Biden did not have the executive power to just delete student loans from day one. People should have read up on that. So it shouldn't be shocking. It should have been a possibility to happen. Like, that's too bad. That would have been nice. But the whole like, oh my God, I couldn't get my $10,000, so that's just me, man. I'm a little petty with it. But I'm going to just sort of like, tell it how it is on that one. But that's all. So back to Alec Baldwin, everybody's unfortunate favorite sharpshooter in Hollywood. Alec Baldwin sues Russ for negligence. Actor wants to clear his name after fatal set shooting, says incident cost him roles. All right, and once again, like, I was a general Alec Baldwin fan of his movies. Glengarry Glen Ross, his cameo in that, probably one of the best monologues of all time. So I don't hate the guy personally. His politics and his behavior obviously pisses me off more and more. So I don't want, obviously I want him to, get what's coming to him justice-wise. But, it's getting really hard to really be more. All right, so just days before Santa Fe District Attorney is expected to announce her intentions in the fatal shooting of Russ cinematographer Helena Hutchins by Alec Baldwin last year. The actor Friday has slammed crew members of the indie Western with a negligence suit, the audacity. Filed on a day when Los Angeles Superior Court is closed for Veterans Day holiday, the photo and email heavy cross-compliant for negligence and indemnification names Gutierrez Reed, First Assistant Director David Halls, Prop Master Sarah Zachary, and the weapons and round supplier Seth Kinney and his company as defendants. This tragedy happened because live bullets were delivered to the set and loaded into the gun. Gutierrez Reed failed to check the bullets or the gun carefully. Halls failed to check the gun carefully, yet they announced the gun was before handing it to Baldwin. Zachary failed to disclose to Gutierrez Reed had been acting recklessly offset and was a safety to those risk around her, says the cross-complaint. Read it here from Baldwin's Quinn Emanuel attorney, Luke Nikes. Recently, having settled a wrongful death suit with Hutchins' family and husband and family and intending to get Russ back on track. So he already did settle a death suit. Baldwin was long declared he never pulled the trigger on the 1880s period gun that was pointed at Hutchins on October 21st, 2021. In a move that risked backfiring on Baldwin, today's filing makes a point of noting the aftermath of the shooting of his career. Baldwin has lost numerous job opportunities and associated income, it says. For example, he had been fired from multiple jobs expressly because of the incident with Russ. It has been passed over for other opportunities, which is a direct result of the negligence of cross-defendants Gutierrez Reed, Halls, Kinney, PDQ, and Zachary. Coming just over a week after Baldwin failed to convince the LASC judge to remove him from Russ script supervisors, Mammy, Mammy Mitchell That's a whole nother conversation. Or see the matter discussed. Friday's filing also claims the Emmy winner has suffered personal consequences from the horrible October 2021 incident. More than anyone else on set, wrongfully viewed the perpetrator of this tragedy. The actor's lawyer rights of his client by these cross claims. Baldwin seeks to clear his name and hold cross defendants accountable for their misconduct. Article just keeps going. All right, almost done. All right, there could be no doubt that others have suffered the cross defense far from Baldwin has. Suit goes on to say, blah blah blah. Producer Joe Souza was shot in the shoulder and suffered physical pain. Baldwin must live with immense grief, physical toll, blah blah. Reps for the cross complaint. Defendants did not return requests for comment. Mitchell is not defendant in the complaint. However, all woman Shirley had something to say about her client's filing on Friday. Baldwin's cross complaint is a shameful attempt to shift the blame to others, just as he's done since he fired the fatal shot, which killed Miss Hutchins' injured client. So Gloria Allred, I just got to take some shots from her, who was so quick to, I think, demonize unvaccinated people. I think she took the side of like vaccinated, or no, I think it was kind of like the women who lied, the women who lied during the Me Too movement. So I guess she kind of shifts sides. She has no loyalty. He claims that everyone else was negligent, everyone else is at fault. One thing Mr. Baldwin take responsibility, blah blah blah. Action report. So it's just an overall shit show. So can I get your thoughts, comments, conspiracy brother, and I'll add a little more after that on this whole situation.
You know, I don't really have a lot, but I don't know. It looks weird. It looks weird for him to try to, what appears to be him trying to shift blame, for how everything went down. Because wasn't he ultimately the executive producer or whatever? I mean, it's an unfortunate situation, and I get, he wants to clear his name, and I think everybody's entitled to that. But just this is one of those situations where you almost can't look good. You know what I'm saying? We don't have more information about exactly what went on before the shooting occurred, and so it's just it's tough. So that's kind of all I'll say about it.
Oh no, it's cool. No, and I think at the end of the day, everybody to some level, if anything, needs to take responsibility, not only civil, as far as like civil settlement goes, or maybe like, when it comes to like payouts. I think Alec, along with all the other people involved, those crew members named, they need to pay out financially. And also I think they need to be held accountable to the law, as far as like the county or whoever was the prosecutor doing that. But yeah, like you mentioned, I think a good way you put it was that there's no way to not look good like coming out of this. Both sides, everybody's going to be kind of injured. I think it really makes you look worse when you try and say none of this is my fault. It's all them. Like, at least have a little humility and take some responsibility. Like, yeah, well, at the end of the day, all the 3 or 4 of them didn't check it. I didn't check the damn gun either. So at this point, you're better off, whether you're Alec Baldwin or one of the crew members, like, have a little humility, take a little responsibility to be like, hey, we were all in on this, like, liability wise, So more updates on this. It is unfortunate. I'm curious too what happened to the other cases. I think the Brandon Lee case 25 years ago, Bruce Lee's son got killed on the set of The Crow. Yeah, so I'm just curious. I might do a little research myself on how all that happened, or what that ended up as. All right, on little topic worth a little controversy. Amazon, Barnes and Nobles urged in an open letter signed by celebrities to pull controversial film and book promoted by Kyrie Irving. This article isn't too long, but if, brother, did you want to? We don't have to read all these names. People, Jesus, they're really busting out the butt broken on Kyrie. Look at this. Okay, great. So literally just a bunch of names. So if you don't mind, conspiracy brother, if you just want to read, there's only like a few paragraphs as far as the article goes. Okay, we can kind of break this down. A lot to unpack.
Okay. So Mila Kunis, Deborah Messing, and other entertainment industry figures are among those who have sent an open letter to Amazon and Barnes & Noble asking that the controversial book and documentary Hebrews to Negroes, Wake Up Black America be removed from their platforms. The nonprofit organization Creative Community for Peace behind the letter, claiming both Amazon and Barnes & Noble allegedly, quote, refused to remove the title and continue to profit from its bigotry, end quote. Kunis, Messing, Jeopardy host Mayim Bialik, and songwriter Diane Warren were among 200 signatories to the letter. It was addressed to, quote, Jeff Bezos, James Daunt, and the leaders at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, end quote.
I apologize. I'm not able to scroll down on my...
Okay. Let's see. I can...
That's weird. Yeah, it's not letting me scroll. Able to go.
I can pull the article up if you want, just to finish reading. Let's see.
All right.
One second.
There we go.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
The protest comes in the wake of NBA star Kyrie Irving promoting the film with a tweet, then refusing to give an adequate apology. He was then suspended by the Brooklyn Nets and was ordered by the Brooklyn Nets to meet with various groups to make things right. The CCFP said the book and movie caused, quote, tremendous harm to the Jewish community, while spreading dangerous misinformation to an impressionable public that may be susceptible to its propaganda, end quote. Quote, these works promote numerous anti-Semitic tropes and conspiracy theories that have no basis in fact, including manufactured Hitler quotes, false claims of Jewish power and control, that the Jewish people fabricated the Holocaust, and that the Jewish people are fake Jews, end quote. The letter continues, quote, the claims made in these works have led to the persecution and murder of millions of Jews throughout the centuries, end quote. Irving's promotion has increased sales of the book. The CCFP said Amazon and BNN are quote, profiting from hate, end quote. Quote, at a time in America where there are more per capita hate crimes against Jews than any other minority, overwhelmingly more religious-based hate crimes against the Jewish people than any other religion, and more hate crimes against the Jewish people in New York than any other minority where a majority of American Jews live, it is unacceptable to allow this type of hate to foment on your platforms, end quote. CCFP wrote. The open letter ends with a plea, quote, we, the undersigned, demand that you immediately remove these works from your sites, end quote. And then the signatories, so Jason Edelman, Vice President, Brand Innovators.
Well, it just goes in a bunch of names. It's like a bunch of we don't have to read the whole list of names unless you want to.
We don't need to. Quite a lot of Jewish people on that list.
Oh yeah.
So I think that needs to be said. And if you don't mind me kind of jumping into it, I think it's interesting because we have taken a free speech and freedom of the press and kind of thrown it away, and that's something that we've done a lot since 2016, I'll say, or around 2014 to 15 when the election was starting. And so, as uncomfortable as it may be, we have seen in media when it pertains to Black people. For example, there are books that still are allowed to exist. And I'm sure, if I went to the trouble of looking, I could find some on Amazon, maybe not Barnes and Noble. But you would still find these works of literature. And so in a way, it's very much the same way that, you see social media trying to limit speech, or where you see Americans trying to limit speech and censor on in the digital spaces. They're trying to bring it to the real world. And, ultimately what you have to do is, if you don't support these ideas as their books, as their movies or documentaries, you have to just not watch. When a movie like American History X or The Original Birth of a Nation, which was played at the White House by Woodrow Wilson, um, is made or preserved in the Library of Congress, or if you go in the Library of Congress, you can find all type of racist music, caricatures, artwork, um, movies, whatever, right, on the Library of Congress website. Um, it is a matter of art, it is a matter of record, and it is a matter of opinion. And if this individual feels like they can justify their opinion with fact, with historical fact or some type of evidence, whether we think it's flimsy or not, the attempt to create a consensus through fact is important. We've seen over the last 2 years the way that facts have been abused, especially with respect to the pandemic, with all the information coming out about how the vaccines were not tested to their fullest capabilities, where you know a lot of things that were being reported were not true, and a lot of things that were happening were not being reported. So when you're in a situation where um, we have really allowed the government and public figures to infringe upon free speech and free thought, we're entering into dangerous territory. You hear fascism talked about a lot in the media nowadays, and you've heard me and me and conservative brother talk about this a lot on this show. Fascism is not necessarily authoritarianism, but it is a working relationship between corporation and the government. And so that's what we understand it to be from the creator of fascism, Benito Mussolini. So when we try to limit fascism as purely an authoritarian process, when we try to limit fascism as purely a dictatorial enterprise, what we do is we cloud the truth of what fascism looks like. And so we have to get back to a point where we can show our pleasure and displeasure with our by voting with our wallet. So if you are dissatisfied with Jeff Bezos, don't pay for an Amazon subscription. Don't watch his shows. Don't use his services. Barnes and Noble, same thing. If you don't like that they provide a product that you don't support, don't purchase their products. Just disengage. But the idea that you can have ideas that in a country where we have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, when a person is not committing a crime under law, the idea that you would try to impose your own sensibilities on that, when we haven't seen that type of outside of when you see like with the trans movement and some LGBT stuff more recently, you haven't seen that type of protection. You haven't seen that type of coddling for groups of people. And so irrespective of the ideas, if no laws are being broken, and even and if they were, it's up to the Justice Department, or the legal justice system to affect real change in these areas. When you look at the apartheid in South Africa, right, it took until 91 for them to do anything about it. Before governments were determined to put pressure on the government of South Africa to end this segregation, this institutionalized, systemic, and I say that very intentionally, not to just kind of throw out buzzwords of today, but institutionalized segregation, right? And many other atrocities, right? And so, it is what it is, unfortunately. And so things have to change. If they need to be changed, there needs to be laws created. And if there are no laws being broken, then we have to understand this through the lens of art and free press and free speech. And we have to just grow up.
Couldn't put it any better, man. And once again, I think and I like how you mentioned before, like, there's nothing wrong with boycotting. Boycotting got us through the civil rights movement. It's gotten us through a lot of stuff, even leading back to, freedom, freeing the slaves. Boycott Amazon. Boycott Prime Video. Boycott Jeff Bezos. But like you mentioned, this whole dangerous territory of censoring, getting rid of it. This hurts my feelings. That's not going to fly in a free society, a constitutional republic. And what's more troubling about this is just the fact that regardless of Kyrie having, he just posted a link, he didn't say anything, and it's just they just go back to the same stranger danger fear. They don't even want to be fair about having a conversation. Like, hey, the Jewish people great atrocities. But at the same time, we do recognize after reviewing this documentary, there were some things that, as far as some things that our people could have done better, or we could see why the Black community has these concerns. Let's open up a conversation. It's none of that. No compromise, no acknowledgement. Just, this is anti-Semitic. This is hate. This has to be removed. This is dangerous. And they can't even have any context, no nuance. Just censor, get rid of, because you can't talk about the untouchables. All right, they were talking about the Jewish media. Obviously, we get censored from this. Rumble's a little cooler about that, but I'm just calling out just the amount of hypocrisy and just how, once again, they're buck breaking Kyrie Irving. There's plenty of different people from that Muslim, I think, senator or congressperson from Dearborn, Michigan, to a lot of other different people that said they're not being to coals like this. And what's also funny about this is that this goes back to the Streisand effect. Are you familiar with the Streisand effect?
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. But I kind of got caught up in my. So yeah.
Okay, no worries. We could hang on this topic a little bit longer, but yeah, basically the Streisand effect. Whatever you try and censor, those that may be familiar, Barbara Streisand, 2003. Basically, how the story went is that it's named after she attempted to, the singer who attempted to suppress the California Coastal Records Project. Photograph of her cliff-top residence in Malibu, and that was taken to document the California coastal erosion. Inadvertently drew greater attention to the photo. When she tried to get it censored, tried to do everything she can. So a lot of people are gonna, guess what? You supported more Black-owned business. Congratulations, numbnuts. You guys removed the film or the book from Amazon. Guess what? That's going to raise the sales of the book. And now they're going to go to Ronald Dalton Jr.'s website. They're going to buy it direct. Good for him. He's no longer getting pennies off of the little Amazon scraps they throw him. He's getting full 50, 70, 80% commission from his website. So congratulations, guys, idiots. Streisand effect is only going to help get the word out more. So that's just the thing. People realize, and it's unfortunate. We could stay on this a little while. You have any other extra thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I think like what you said with the Streisand effect, and just, I mean, Barbara Streisand is also Jewish, so I don't know if that is a coincidence that because I know the ADL had come out, and so I know that usually in these instances the ADL takes a very aggressive approach as it pertains to perceived anti-Semitism. So I don't know if she, and there's always a stereotype of Jewish people being litigious, and so those are kind of tropes or whatever that you see in media. So I think ultimately what you're saying is this is going to bring greater, even to the Kanye West situation. Let's say these ideas from Kyrie and Kanye have no merit, right? Mm-hmm. If I grant that, which I have no position one way or the other, I haven't given much thought to it. But if I grant that the positions have no merit whatsoever, right, on their face, if I just say they're both completely wrong, Kanye's whole thing was that Jewish people control media, and so Kyrie posted a link, and on YouTube, it's supposed to be retweets are not endorsements, but I guess when you're a celebrity and you post a link, you're endorsing things But when you I mean, he could have just been posting it to let people know that it exists. But we won't get into it. But Kyrie posted links to a video, a documentary about Jewish people, blacks being the real Hebrews, right? And there's a religious organization called the Black Hebrew Israelites. There are black people who do believe that they are descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel. And so it's a religion. If Mormonism has the right to exist, if Scientology has the right to exist, I think Black Hebrew Israelites have the same right to exist. But he posted a link, and so the response, the reflex from the Jewish community was to say, we don't have outsized control of the media, and we're going to show that to you by having Kanye drop from his record label and Adidas and his bank, and we're going to, or Kyrie, and we're going to make your name mud, and you're going to make you jump through all these hoops to play basketball after you apologize because you didn't apologize sufficiently, and we're going to, your talent agency is going to drop you, and we're going to make your life a wreck. That seems very counterintuitive. If I wanted to show my wife that I wasn't abusive, I wouldn't do it by beating her up. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't try to force her to see my perspective. I would have to show a different tact. And so, saying nothing whether or not I agree with the sentiments from either the film or from what Kanye wrote, because I haven't seen the film and I haven't really listened to what Kanye said, honestly. So I don't know what he said. It's just, this is a weird way to show that they're wrong. It's a weird way, this aggressive, heavy-handed way to show that what he was saying and what they were being accused of saying wasn't true.
Yeah, and I'm just going through all those little woke virtue signaling comments, but you couldn't put it any better. At the end of the day, this is just a downhill, just going downhill. So let me not go over more than that. Next topic, Harvey Weinstein. Jennifer Seibel Newsom's attorney, who was the wife of California Governor Gavin Newsom, condemns Weinstein's defense strategy. They're trying to win based off on attacking victims. All right, so I'm only going to read this first paragraph, and we can kind of maybe just give our general thoughts on what's going on. During opening statements in Harvey Weinstein's Los Angeles trial, attorneys for the former Hollywood titan told the jury that Weinstein was innocent. His defense stated that the women with whom Weinstein was sexually involved with all agreed to transactional sex in exchange for work in the entertainment industry. They took aim at the trial's most high-profile witness, Jane Doe number 4, Jennifer Seibel Newsom, calling her a bimbo. Seibel Newsom has not yet taken the stand, but is expected to testify in a 2-month trial. Filmmaker and first partner of California, who was married to California Governor Gavin Newsom, has accused Weinstein of rape in 2005. At the time, she was an upcoming actor and filmmaker. So let's give us, if you'd like to give maybe Conspiracy Brother your general thoughts. Obviously, there's more context we can dig in on the article with, but in general, obviously the casting couch, as they call it in Hollywood, isn't anything new. It's been around since the dawn of time. And with Me Too coming up in 2017, the chickens came home to roost. So I guess my question would be, in addition to your general thoughts, Conspiracy Brother, do you think Harvey Weinstein is just being the big punching bag, even though there's a lot of them more out there, and he's just being the example? Do you think they're giving him too much punishment, or not enough?
I don't know if I would say too much punishment necessarily, but what I will say is that, and Dave Chappelle talked about this in one of his shows. You can't have a situation where people are participating in a system, corrupt, coercive, exploitative, and then have those same people complain after they've participated and things didn't work out as they liked. This is my opinion about how they were treated. For me, for me, it's just quite hypocritical.
Yeah.
For that, you know, it. How many celebrities have done this? And like you said, it's probably from. I mean, the joke even with Steven Spielberg's wife. I don't know if it's his first wife or his only wife, but in Indiana Jones, you know, she was in that movie and she was married to the director. Like, this is not a. I believe she was in Temple of Doom, but you know, this is not a new thing. And you know, just historically, how many women? I posted an article in our group about a woman who was a Wall Street accountant who quit her job to become an escort for high-powered executives. You know, how often do women use sex for their benefit? And then when things don't work out, or when they no longer can sustain the lifestyle they're accustomed to, they resort to this type of action. Like we talked about, you know, believe women. I can't do that. I can't believe anyone. I can only believe the facts. Right? What's the expression? Men lie, women lie, facts don't lie, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it may require some effort to find facts. It may require some digging to find truth. But I believe truth is worth the effort. And so in a situation like this where you are you're trying to understand what went on, every woman who participated in this, maybe she was preyed upon. Right. But at any moment, we have to believe that you could have said no and gone. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Hollywood Shuffle. It's Robert Townsend's first. I believe it's his first movie.
Yep.
And one of my favorite movies, because the ultimate message is just, you know, if you can't do something in Hollywood that you can feel respected about or respected in doing, just go be a mailman. And that's, you know, that's what he did. He did a lot of stereotypical roles trying to get his big break as an actor. He pretended to be Eddie Murphy and just regular black hoodlums of the, you know, early 80s. But eventually he got to a point where he could not, in good conscience, do what he was being asked to do. And so he just went to go be a mailman. And that's the problem. What is the price of fame? What is the price of fortune? What is the price that you're willing to pay? And if you're willing to pay a high price, then you have to do that. And if you're not willing to pay the high price, you can advocate for the system to change. Again, like with the book and the documentary, you can advocate for the system to change, and you can do things to make things better. And it's going to take a lot of effort on your part, and it's going to be more difficult. But if that's what you believe in, that's what you got to do. But you don't get to participate in the system of exploitation and of like this, and then complain about it after you've done what you've done. You know, if you're of age, if you're of sound mind, you know, if you weren't at an age where you could make decisions soundly as an adult, then maybe we can make different allocations for you and special like exceptions for you. But if you're an adult and you decided to sleep with the person for a role in the movie, you made that decision consciously, and I don't have sympathy for you for that. You know, now the tough part is digging to the bottom of the facts, but I don't have sympathy for you for doing that. You know, people will only do what you accept.
Well said, man. Well said. And then I want to kind of just piggyback off of that. Like many, obviously, people, there's, you know, I like what you said, men lie, women lie, facts don't lie. And there's, once again, there's a lot of cases in Hollywood, even with Kevin Spacey, the facts are a little less in his favor. Louis C.K. maybe not so much, even though he was one of the first cancellations. Because think about it. Once again, the casting couch, whatever it is, if a woman or someone's willing to do whatever it is for fame, and they have their moral integrity, they should have known not to be at a hotel room with Louis C.K. 2-3 in the morning. Like, what did you think was going to happen? So I think the same idea here. Now, were there some situations where, once again, the woman maybe felt uncomfortable, or maybe like he just got a little rough, maybe the more that she liked? Probably. But does that constitute rape? And, oh, he just attacked me out the blue? No. So it's all about the nuance and the context. And like you had mentioned before, oh, things didn't work out the way it was supposed to. I was playing the game until I didn't like how the game was going. So now I'm going to decide to cry wolf. And I think also, too, I think another thing that would solve this, I don't know if you follow a guy named Andy Frisella. He has a podcast called the Realest Fuck Podcast. I posted a few of his podcast episodes in our group chat. But he had a really good idea. Sometimes extreme times call for extreme common sense measures. As crazy as it might sound, what I think they should do moving forward for any crime that a plaintiff accuses the defendant of, and then after the trial, the facts turn out that that defendant was not guilty of that, or was innocent, or it was a lie, whatever that crime was, that sentence involved, that should turn around and be the same sentence that should be given to the one that accused the person. All right. So when you accuse somebody, it turns out what happened, and whatever they're up as far as the sentence or the punishment, it turned out it was bullshit and the facts didn't match up. That same person who was accusing falsely should then be punished with that same punishment, in my opinion. And that's going to make a lot of the legal cases, and then, like you said, this very litigious world we live in now, that's going to make cases drop. Because if you know you about to accuse somebody of some bullshit, and then we find out it's bullshit, because you see most of the time there's no accountability. It's kind of one of those things where you're guilty in the matter of public opinion. Now, once again, I'm not advocating for Weinstein. Obviously, he's done some stuff, but I feel like in a majority of these women coming forward, they weren't doing anything they weren't already verbally, agreed to, or at least had an understanding of. But I think at the end of the day, if the person who gets accused, if the person who does the accusing ends up being bullshit, they end up getting the same punishment that whoever they accused of was going to get. And that's going to make a lot of those claims go down. But I think people are too timid for that. That's a little too extreme, But I think that would, be something worth it. Right. All right, guys. So moving on, we have a little update over at Nike. So here, all right. So why is Nike founder Phil Knight so desperate to prevent a Democratic win in Oregon? I don't know. Was this something you shared, Conspiracy Brother? Did you want to give some insight on this?
I don't think I shared this. I think someone else did. I can read it, but I don't think I shared this.
Okay, yeah, we can read maybe the first few paragraphs just so we get a little context of it. Whenever you're ready.
So I wonder, what I am curious about is how many invested liberals are ready to stop buying Nikes with this information. But let's see.
Yeah.
If Republicans win the race for Oregon governor, it will be down to one man, or even the NBA, right? Wow, all those NBA political activists who are so outspoken about everything. I wonder what will happen. Knight, of course, is the 84-year-old co-founder and chair emeritus of Nike, the house that Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods built. And in this race to govern Oregon, a bastion of West Coast liberalism, Knight has thrown full support behind the Republican Christine Drazan, an anti-abortion, tough-on-crime former lobbyist pushing election integrity. In a rare interview with the New York Times, Knight made his motive clear. Oregon's next governor can be anyone but the Democratic nominee, Tina Kotek. Knight's lavish support of the right would seem to betray Nike's own pursuit of social equality and environmental protection. After all, this is the, quote, just do it brand, end quote, that champions Serena Williams, that kneels with Colin Kaepernick, that featured Argentina's first trans female soccer player in a recent advertisement. That's going to be rough. That person is going to be really good.
Oh, it's going to be brilliant. Yeah.
Over the years, the company, 15-year-old boys beat the Australian women's national team 6-0, and they were ranked number 5 in the world at the time. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be rough if you have a trans soccer player. That person is going to be the female Pele, or the woman Pele. I guess they're not female, but you know what I mean. Over the years, the company has pledged millions to organizations dedicated to leveling the playing field in all spheres of life. But it has also come under fire for crafting a progressive PR image as cover while manufacturing products in Asian sweatshops with forced labor practices. A 2019 study by the Clean Clothes Campaign gave Nike its worst rating, stating, quote, the brand can show no evidence of a living wage being paid to any workers, end quote. Worse, a 2020 Washington Post report sourced some Nike products to a Chinese factory, quote, under conditions that strongly suggest forced labor, end quote. Some Uyghurs, according to Australian Strategic Policy Institute think tank.
Keep reading, or is that about enough?
Well, let's see. Yeah, it doesn't really, it would be interesting to see why he doesn't want Kotek to win, but I can look at that up on my own. We can put I'll put links to these articles. I can put those in the video so that way we can leave them for people to read if they want to read.
So what are your initial
I think in general you find that there's probably, since he's from Oregon, since he lives in Oregon, he's been there his whole life. I'm sure that some of that stuff with the Chaz and the way the chop they were calling it or whatever, in the way that it's like I've heard what's their big city? Portland is just like a pit. You know what I'm saying? I've heard it's just terrible, and so I mean maybe he's trying to get somebody else to clean it up, to change it up to his liking, and he's got the money to do it. Everybody's happy with him. He's just cut ties with Kyrie Irving. So, everybody should be happy with him. They should still be buying all their Nikes, Air Force Ones and Jordans and LeBrons and Kevin Durant's and et cetera, et cetera. Because, he's doing what you want him to do.
Yeah, and I think once again, like you mentioned, and I think once again, like you can't cancel Phil Knight. I'm sure he has a majority stake still in the company. He's like, I built this, like, fuck you, pay me, I'm the top here, So I think it's going to be very interesting. It just kind of reminds me of back when LeBron James, or even still now, where LeBron James and nobody in Nike, they won't call anything out about China. Because once again, that's where they built the basis of their bottom line, is off these unlivable wages in these Chinese sweatshops. So it's just going to be interesting how it further points out the hypocrisy. Or once again, maybe this is Phil Knight playing 4D chess, 4 moves ahead, on like maybe him seeing like how far his company has gone. I mean, I don't know all the details on how active he still is. He says he's still a chair emeritus of Nike. So I'm sure he's not as involved or in the trenches as he was 30, 40 years ago. But at the same time, I think this is really going to provide a very interesting commentary on, and I think for the most part, Nike over there, they're over there freaking out. Probably just going to cover it up, like maybe just bury the story. They're probably censor, like, oh, we don't even want to talk about that. Phil Knight supporting who? Oh no, what's that about? Just how they won't talk about their dealings with China. And God knows LeBron ain't gonna mention nothing. He'll keep his mouth shut. So I think this is going to be very interesting. Obviously, it won't be like the fall of Nike or anything like that. I think they'll get a little pushback. There'll be some very far left woke trolls that get a little butthurt about Phil Knight. Oh my God, supporting a Republican. But I think overall, it's just going to blow over like everything else. Or, Nike just do their best to, mainstream media do their best to kind of censor the weird conflict. And then, like I said, the little woke trolls will get a little upset about it. And then it'll probably go away but in a few weeks. My opinion. Anything else to add, Conspiracy Brother? We move on?
No, I think that's it. That's all I have.
All righty. Okay, next up, Disney plans layoffs. Rigorous review of spending hiring freeze. Tough and uncomfortable decisions coming. CEO Bob Chapek tells staff. All right, so this is very interesting. Obviously, Disney has been the topic that we've kind of come back to the last years. Everything from Disney trying to get on the political train and trying they were trying to stand against DeSantis on the Don't Say Gay bill. DeSantis was like, I'll give you something to cry about, and threw some zoning challenges at them. And then, of course, Disney with their, Little Mermaid fiasco. Everybody hated it. I think we kind of talked about it in another show on really they're kind of a lot of Hollywood. They're going toward this woke fan baiting. So I think Disney kind of has a hand in that, doing all this shit to screw up the original IP just to piss people off and to really get the controversy and notoriety that could lead to the intention and the sales. because people aren't going to show up to your crappy fifth remake that nobody likes. So let us just add a lot of this woke controversy to it that gets people pissed off and wanting to go see. So once again, really from a roller coaster stock market and earning misses, the Walt Disney Company is about to start cutting spending, costs, and staff, CEO Bob Chapek said. I am fully aware that this is a difficult process for many of you on our teams. Chapek wrote to Disney executives this Veterans Day as the House of Mouse heads into its 100th anniversary. We're going to have very tough and uncomfortable decisions. He added in the memo to a process that has clearly been in the works for a while. But that is what just leadership requires. And I thank you in advance for stepping up during this important time. So it's just another example, guys, just like Twitter, just like Vice and Facebook Meta and all this Disney, woke, you go broke. Woke goes broke. And a lot of these companies are really starting to, as this recession continues, these companies are now at the brunt end of it. Bluntly predicting some staff reductions. As part of this review, Chapek went on to tell top staffers, while we will not sacrifice quality or the strength of our unrivaled synergy machine, we must ensure our investors are both efficient and come with tangible benefits to both audiences and the company. Like its media peers, the approximately 190,000 employee strong Disney has felt the pain in 2022. Oh yeah, they need to trim the fat. Just like Twitter, just like Elon Musk is trimming the fat. There's a lot of fat. You don't need that many employees. With the stock now more than 40% in inflation, foreign currency and fluctuation, and the bruising streaming competition applying pressure to its operations. Earlier this week, the company reported quarterly earnings below Wall Street expectations, issued a striking soft guidance for fiscal 2023 revenue and profit, further nerving investors. Its beleaguered shares recovered earlier today, rising 5%, finally bounced off of a multi-year low year of day. Some other stats about the pay TV loss, the hiring freeze, series of reorganizations, industry changing, including that $71.3 billion deal where they acquired 21st Century Fox in 2019. It's gone to a simplified corporate structure with just two divisions: parks, experiences, and products and media, entertainment distribution. While the largest workforce on the block, Disney is far from the only company reducing its rank as some of the fundamentals of the overall economy look shaky. WB only reduce its debt from the $43 billion merger of Warner Media and Discovery, closed last April, has initiated several rounds of cost cut. And streaming. Tech giants also not immune to the downturn, with Meta Platforms announcing it's trimming 13% of its staff and Amazon signaling a major cost-cutting effort. So this is more about their Bob Chapek's CEO memo here. Feel free to read. But yeah, man, a conspiracy brother, love to get your thoughts. Once again, I feel like woke is going broke. These companies that have been at the center of this insaneness and being too big to fail, they're starting to feel the hurt. And a lot of this is coming to a shock to people. But the recession's been here. But then you got MSM lying about the recession. But this is just further proof of what's going on. So, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, I watch a lot of different YouTube channels about. One of my favorites is Clownfish, but I watch Midnight's Edge, and I watch Geeks and Gamers and Nerdrotic, and lots of different people who are really invested in like comic books and entertainment. Clownfish actually used to work for Disney. They were animators for Disney, and so one of the things that I notice is like Disney is, and I don't know if you've ever seen the what is it? Not Leaders of Tomorrow, but it's Disney had this like private conversation with their company. It was an internal conversation, but it was leaked. And it showed different ways they were trying to push, what is known as the woke agenda, right? This one, she was a black lady, said she tries to put gay stuff and everything, and she never got any pushback for it. One lady who was like the head of Disney, she was like an executive vice president or something. Something in Disney, she said one of her daughters is trans and the other one is poly or something. And like they were all just talking about different things they've done to try to push certain agendas in Disney movies. right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at Marvel Phase 4, which is the newest stuff. Like a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the Phase 4 movies that are being made off of characters who came out like 2016, 15, and later, who weren't
Yeah.
popular, right? Their
Right.
comic books didn't sell. America Chavez. I don't read comics, but I just watch these guys' content. Eric July, who started his own comic, he's a libertarian,
Mm-hmm.
anarcho-capitalist from Texas, I think Dallas. Started his own comic book this year. I've even watched some of Ethan Van Sciver, who was he's a cyber frog. Eric July's is Isom. So just to kind of, but like they always talk about how these weren't successful comic runs. They talk about how Miss Marvel, which is that movie, the show they made on Disney Plus, it wasn't a successful comic. Even Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, her character had to be rebooted like 3 or 4 times within a span of months, or not months, but years, because she wasn't a successful comic. The only real legacy female character that's come out in Phase 4 of Marvel is She-Hulk, and they've kind of changed her character so much in the show from the character in the book that a lot of fans didn't like that. It was one of the least watched Disney Plus shows ever. Before that, it was the Miss Marvel show with I forget her name, Kamala Khan, who was a self-insert. And so self-inserts are characters who are created based off of their they're modeled off of their creator, so they allow the creator of that to kind of put themselves in the world of the comics. And so Disney has kind of, when you look at the Little Mermaid and the choices they've made, where they've gone the route they've gone with the casting. For me, it's the casting and just the money grabbing that they've resorted to with respect to all the live action remakes. But some of the stylistic choices you see with like Mulan, and so they push an agenda, and fans they're not feeling the products anymore. They're making a Snow White, and I guess a lot of the outrage is that Snow White, the name comes from the fact that her skin is supposed to be like porcelain. She's supposed to be so white, but the girl they have playing her is Hispanic or Latina or something. And just so you see, Disney is and a lot of people blame Chapek for it. Bob Chapek, they blame him for it because, like you said, he wasn't going to say anything about the quote unquote "Don't Say Gay" bill. I think it's Parental Rights and Education is the actual name. And he was going to just kind of stay out of it because it's politics. And he's as a business owner or head of a major corporation, he wants to stay out of it. But he faced backlash internally and externally to say something. So you see Disney kind of going through something with that. But one of the other things that I think is important, what I've heard a lot, you see Kathleen Kennedy kind of destroying Star Wars. Kevin Feige is destroying Marvel. Like what you see is, it seems like from what I've heard that some people are saying, because some people want Chapek to be fired. They want him gone.
Well, I want to say Kevin Feige's destroying Marvel. He did. I feel like now he's at the point where I made my money. I got through Avengers Endgame. If I could just gotten through that, we made $2 billion. I feel like Kevin Feige's kind of taking his foot off the gas and let other people come in to kind of screw it up. But I wouldn't say like he's like really tanking Marvel, but he's kind of like, I don't care as much. I'm delegating and letting other people kind of screw it up. In my opinion.
Well, what I'll say about that, because I think your perspective is accurate. He's not actively trying to destroy it, but what he is doing, I think, like you're saying, he's putting people in charge and allowing them to do things that artistically do not benefit the overall production. But what I was going to say about Chapek, they want him fired. A lot of people want him fired, but what it seems like he's trying to do from some of the different places I've heard, one of them you can watch is Doomcock Overlord DVD. He seems to have a lot of industry insiders, especially within Disney and Marvel and Lucasfilm, because they're making an Indiana Jones 5 movie where Phoebe Waller-Bridge goes back in time and she replaces Indiana Jones. So they got a lot of crap they're doing over there that I don't know if it's not fan service. You take established IPs and then you run them into the ground. But what they're saying is Chapek is essentially trying to give everybody the rope to hang themselves so that he could justify firing them later. As of now, because Kathleen Kennedy's a woman, she has so much clout within Hollywood. She's so respected as a producer, as an executive producer, that if he was to just fire her, it could be bad for him, because I think BlackRock owns quite a significant share of Disney stock. And so enough to really pull some strings. So he's just trying to show that their ideas aren't profitable for Disney in the long run. And so based on performance,
he's kind of like a mole agent that, if anything, is maybe trying to expose what's going on. And yeah, like you said, maybe paying 4D chess to really expose and get the trouble out of there. You think?
Right. That's what I've heard as an interpretation of the situation. I don't know, but So that's kind of all I have for that.
All right, great. Well, great commentary. We spoke woke fan baiting a few episodes back. Definitely check that out. But yeah, definitely great commentary. We just have to see what happens. All right, second to the last article. We have a couple both worked for Meta, woke up the same email telling them they've been laid off. Now, we know Yahoo articles are like this long. So if you want to, Conspiracy Brother, if you want to just kind of give us the context, we could read through it, up to you.
Well, I just the interesting part for me is just how much attention you've gotten from Elon Musk and Twitter, and how much they've lost revenue, and how many people they've laid off, and how he's having to rehire people and whatever. And Facebook's not really getting that kind of attention. And I think just recently they lost about 900. I think the number was either $600 or $900 billion, which is the largest single day loss of a U.S. corporation. And they had the previous record, which was about 100 and something billion or 200 and something billion, like 4 or 5 years ago. So a lot of tech companies are laying off. A lot of companies are laying off because, these places have to make money in the long run. And you staff them so long with people who wanted to make it Google. I remember when Google first started, they had like hammocks everywhere and you could wash your clothes, and it was really a laid back environment. And I think a lot of these companies wanted to live off of that. The venture capital is drying up. Elon Musk personally bought Twitter, so it's his own private business now. So he wants to make his money back, and so you see a lot of these companies are laying people off, bringing them back to the workplace because they want to make money now. They're losing too much. They're trying to cut the fat and make money. So a couple who both worked for Meta woke up to the same email telling them they'd been laid off. And so, like I said, we've seen a lot of mention made about how Twitter is laying people off. But I mean, Facebook is doing the same thing. Jobs do this. Nobody's giving you anything extra. They're doing the bare minimum. And if you're not needed, if you're not necessary, they're getting rid of you. A couple who both worked for Meta woke up to the same email on Wednesday telling them they had been included in the mass layoffs by the Facebook and Instagram owner. Jess White posted on LinkedIn on Wednesday to say that she and Anthony White were among the 11,000 employees losing their jobs. Mark Zuckerberg announced that 11,000 staff, or 13% of its workforce, will depart on the cull. The Meta CEO apologized to those affected by the layoffs and said he wanted to take, quote, accountability, end quote, for the decision. Quote, I got this wrong and I take responsibility for that, end quote. Jess White had worked at Meta as a technical sourcer in artificial intelligence since November last year, while Anthony White joined a month later as a technical sourcer, according to their LinkedIn profiles. This morning, quote, this morning, both Anthony White and I woke to emails that we were both part of Meta's 13% layoff. I have loved my time at Meta and really respect and appreciate everyone who I have worked with /for. That all being said, I am open to work, #open to work in talent sourcing roles, end quote, she wrote on LinkedIn. The layoffs came just 8 weeks after Jess White posted on LinkedIn to say she was, quote, excited, end quote, about returning from parental leave after 6 months and praised Meta's progressive parental leave policy. Zuckerberg said in the announcement that his staff will receive 16 weeks of pay as well as 2 weeks for each year of service. He also said Meta would offer 3 months of career support through an external company, which would include early access to jobs that have not been advertised yet. Meta and Jess and did not immediately respond to insiders' request for comment. So again, this is the same thing with Elon Musk. where they said, oh, he's going to face a lawsuit because he violated the Warren Act. He's giving these people severance in the same way. I don't know if he's giving them the 2 weeks for each year of service. I don't know if he's doing that. But, I mean, the tech industry and these type of ultra liberal and progressive bastions, and like in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, San Jose, they really live a detached existence. And so, if I was at my job and I wasn't needed any longer, I'd be let go. And so this is what happens to people, and it is unfortunate, but this isn't the end of the world. People get let go and fired all the time. And so you have to just hope that you saved your money as best you could when you were doing what you needed to be doing. And that's all, that's all we can say, because these are still billionaires, whether they think they're progressive, whether we think that they're nice guys or not, they're billionaires. Mm-hmm. And so it is what it is.
I mean, this will come home to roost, unfortunately. And, just further, just sort of solidifies that, no job is safe. There's no job security. What I like to say is there is no job security except for those that know there is no job security. There's job security for them because they know to adjust, whether they're playing career politics and the office politics, or they're always kind of like, putting feelers out there. They got 2 or 3 options lined up. Those are the people that have real job security. But the whole job security myth or fallacy isn't a Silicon Valley. It kind of almost reminds me a little bit. I don't think it's as extreme, but definitely the 2000.com bubble. I feel like we're starting to see some remnants of that, especially with this recession that we've had this year. It's starting to kind of culminate to something similar. So definitely a lot more update on that, but obviously Silicon Valley was safe for long. All right, now up here, our girl. Come get your girl, You tell them, honey. So we about to go back to our very kind of like that big sister we had, never had but never wanted, but we also are kind of like, well, she's our sister, but not really. Skinfolk and kinfolk. Stacey Abrams. So, exit polls contradict narrative that Stacey Abrams lost black male support in Georgia gubernatorial race. Stacey Abrams lost to Brian Kemp in Georgia gubernatorial race. Had nothing to do with the lack of support of black. So this reminds me of a video you posted, Conspiracy Brother, about like, hey, when seed is black girl, it's black men's fault. All right, so I think that was interesting commentary. But I kind of read a little bit here. First off, let's get one fact out the way. It's hard as fuck to get a black person elected as governor in this country. On Tuesday, Westmore made history by becoming the very first black person to be elected governor of Maryland. But the statistic that's even more telling is one that shows he's the only third black person to be elected as governor of any state in U.S. history. In other words, nobody should be surprised Stacey Abrams lost to incumbent Brian Kemp in Georgia's gubernatorial race. In fact, Abrams' loss of it, though it may be, provides an opportunity to dispel a loud and wrong narrative that prevailed throughout much of her campaign. The idea that Abrams was losing ground with the black community and black men in particular turned out to be false, as the notion that black male voters would be instrumental in getting Abrams elected. For example, Run the Great Value political commentator Killer Mike suggested that Abrams, a woman who was instrumental in galvanizing Democratic voters in 2020, was not enough to attract black men. And I commend Killer Mike for not, Mike even praised Kemp for running an effective campaign with black voters, despite the fact that Kemp's only connection to black voters appears to be his enthusiasm for making them disappear. Unsurprisingly, the exit polls tell a different story. Michael Harriet, according to exit polls, Abrams had more support for black men than Dems had nationwide. In fact, if every single black male Kemp voter had voted for Abrams instead, she still would have lost. Turns out the black male voter problem was a lie. It was white voters. It always is. So, Conspiracy, would you like to go ahead and give us some I'll read the rest of this real quick. The polls show that black people, let's see here, black people who represented just over 31% of Georgia population, and 20% of those who voted represented 90% of those who voted for Stacey Abrams. Over 80% of black men voted for the woman who was supposedly losing ground with her black magic voting block. Here's another completely uninteresting and unsurprisingly water is wet fact. Kemp won because white Georgians overwhelmingly voted for him. As usual, white people were the only racial demographic majority to vote Republican in the 2022 midterms, outside of American Indians, who represent 1% of voters. And that was also the case in Georgia's gubernatorial race. So maybe the truth is Abrams' loss was inevitable because despite Georgia voting in a Democratic president and flipping a couple Senate states in 2022, the peach state is still very white and very red at heart. I mean, Atlanta Metro can't do it all on its own, after all. So, Conspiracy Brother, let's go ahead and give us your take. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's always, the media is always trying to blame black men as some type of reason why black women aren't successful or aren't succeeding or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's really just getting very tired. Ultimately, it's just tired. And so, she's not popular in Georgia. I think people really misunderstand Georgia's demographics, because Atlanta is black, but most people don't live in Georgia. I mean, most people don't live in Atlanta. And so when you get outside of, 275, what you see is that, it's not that kind of game. It's not that kind of game down there in the politics space. That's why the whole runoff between Warnock and I forget his name, Herschel Walker, is going to be interesting, because I think ultimately, I think when you factor in the libertarian candidate, I think you're going to see a lot of people still support the Republican candidate. I think, Stacey Abrams had a very condescending campaign when she talked about how black men are susceptible to, misinformation, and that we needed to be shielded from misinformation. But I think, she's not going to win down there. The demographics haven't shifted enough. I think she overestimates her appeal statewide. She overestimates her ability to mobilize supporters in Atlanta to do anything with respect to her being elected. And so, it is what it is. I think, black men are supportive. We have our own interests as well, though. And so whether or not they say, because ultimately for me, I think, let's say she didn't get black male support. Let's say she didn't. Let's say black males decided to reject her and everything she stood for and not vote for her. That's our right, or that's their right, however you want to look at it. Black men have the right to choose their own political representatives. And if you don't align with the political agenda that black men have determined for themselves, that's not our fault. That's your fault. So,
Couldn't have said it any better. And just the audacity, this once again goes back to kind of Democrats having this Negro overseer. Like, how dare you? Don't look over here. Don't look at the man behind the curtain over there. The emperor with no clothes. The whole black men are more susceptible to misinformation. What type of bullshit is that? I took that as a personal insult. And it's like you get what you ordered. Yeah, it just once again goes to these different fallacies, all these different ways they want to confuse or just find ways to kind of keep people dependent on the Democrat Party teat. And then when it doesn't go their way, you're wondering why. So I have no sympathy for Stacey Abrams. Everything from her having the picture of all the kids wearing the mask because she didn't wear one, and just how she just sort of, she's one of the biggest election deniers around, along with, the majority of Democrats. But when the only election deniers are domestic terrorists, the 2020 election deniers. So just the hypocrisies, just so much of that is just starting to expose not only Stacey Abrams, but just her further agenda. Because a lot of us were calling this before the whole election on how she's not for the black agenda. She is doing all types of stuff to basically, the kind of forward the Democratic agenda. She can't even say black reparations for black people. I think she was on an interview with Earn Your Leisure, like they're like a really big financial literacy podcast. She couldn't even say black and reparations in the same sentence. So you can already tell, it's already exposed. It's already read between the lines on where her loyalties lie. And then the fact, like you mentioned, end of the day, her political messaging, it just wasn't aligning to what a lot of black men and even other people besides black men wanted to be aligned with. And there you have it. All right, so that's all I got, man. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Episode 9 is in the bag. Yeah, a little bit of a long one. I think we had some much needed conversations. I'm gonna talk conspiracy, brother. I know we usually do this every 2 weeks, but we'll see about maybe doing it a little more often, maybe once a week, once a Saturday. But it really depends on our schedule. We're both very busy, but we will at least commit to at least twice a month, getting you guys some of this much needed information. So once again, I'm Conservative Brother Daily, Conspiracy Brother. Anything before we like to mention before we wrap up here?
No, I just it was a good conversation. I think we addressed a lot of topics, and yeah, we're kind of long, but I think that was necessary. So overall, I think it was a good show. Hope the information is valuable to everybody listening, and I'm glad my microphone seemed to keep up the whole time. So
yeah, your microphone was on point today. No staticky or nothing, man. We were crystal clear. Just a reminder, guys, Uncomfy Truths podcast, spreading common sense in the nonsense world. We are currently on Rumble as well as Odyssey. You got to send me the Odyssey link. I don't know if I still got to put in all the same titles and all that stuff to update it or thumbnails, but yeah, we're definitely on the Odyssey as well as Rumble. So definitely tune in, y'all, and keep hearing the truth. And we will see you guys next time.
Peace.
Peace.